So, number 3, it's really important that you have a culture where it is normal for people to acknowledge that we all have bias, and therefore that we don't feel like we can't challenge it when we see it, or we can't admit it when maybe we have it. You know, one of my colleagues talks about having a bias buddy, somebody that they have officially given permission to call them out and challenge them if they see bias. We can't mitigate bias to zero, but actually an open conversation about it and a culture where we can say things like, where's the evidence of that? Is that based on an assumption maybe? Is there a little bit of bias here? Even something like, you always go for candidates that are a bit like this. All of this will help massively. Right, number 2. This is a tricky one, and I know as an external consultant, it's easy for me to say this, but we've got to find time to do this process properly. I know we are pushed for time, but we are so convinced that if you do this process properly, if you really make the time to brief the role in detail, to analyze what the role really needs to be, to create the right criteria, and then to do that in-depth interview, we do think it's a time saver in the fullness, of that person's employment. If we hire the wrong person because we didn't interview properly, that's a lot worse, in terms of the time that we lose. So I know it's hard, but actually really finding the time to do each interview in depth, with this level of detail that we suggest, I think is absolutely essential. Number 1, the most important thing we can do is have a process in place as an organization and for everybody to follow it. We are all biased. We can't remove bias. It's a consequence of our upbringing, of the media that we consume. So it's going to be in there, even if, you think it isn't. I used to think, well, I don't need to follow processes as much because I'm very anti-bias, I'm very open-minded. But I realized over time, it's actually that humility to follow a process which creates that consistency, but also has those checks in place. So if I have a discussion about a role advert with someone else, I'm forced to articulate what I'm looking for in advance. And then I shortlist and then I interview and everything's recorded and everything's noted down. There are checks in place to ensure that my bias isn't affecting the outcome as much. It sounds, potentially boring for some people to say process is the most important thing, but actually it's process that will create that consistency and reduce the impact that bias can have. So this is about humility. Have a great process in place that's evidence-based and commit to following that. Thank you.